Did you know your brain contains biological landmines specifically designed to detonate wealth-building potential? Let me expose the first layer of psychological warfare, the wealthy wage against their own neurology. Most assume millionaires have better resources or luck, but neuroscience reveals their true edge lies in hijacking primal fear circuits. When faced with financial decisions, the average person's amygdala floods their prefrontal cortex with cortisol, literally shutting down strategic thinking. But here's the forbidden truth. The rich train their brains to rewire this process through deliberate synaptic sabotage. They don't think differently. They physically altered their neural architecture to bypass poverty programming. Your mind currently runs outdated financial software installed through generations of scarcity. Every time you hesitate to negotiate salaries or avoid reviewing investments, you're not being lazy, you're experiencing neurological resistance. The solution: mirror neuron exploitation. High-net-worth individuals spend hours analyzing recordings of investors who remain calm during market crashes, tricking their brains into adopting those stress-resistant patterns. This isn't positive thinking. It's neural espionage, but the real weapon lies in synaptic pruning. Each time you repetitively visualize executing bold financial moves, like demanding a raise or purchasing assets, you're surgically dissolving fear-based neural pathways. Billionaires call this cognitive demolition. They don't have more confidence. They've systematically destroyed the brain cells encoding financial hesitation. The violent truth: your current net worth directly mirrors the neurological limitations you failed to dismantle. While you battle impulsive spending urges, the wealthy outsourced that fight decades ago by creating alternate neural circuits that bypass temptation entirely. Their secret isn't discipline. It's having a secondary brain network that automatically redirects financial decisions to cold, calculated logic centers. Now consider this biological betrayal. Every minute you delay implementing these hacks, your brain strengthens poverty pathways through a process called myelination. The insulation around neural wires grows thicker each time you repeat self-sabotaging money behaviors. But here's the life-altering loophole. Neuroplasticity allows you to corrode that insulation through targeted mental counterattacks. The elite don't just make better choices. They engineered a cognitive parasite that hijacks their decision-making machinery. This isn't metaphor. Functional MRI scans prove their financial decisions originate in different brain regions altogether. While you're using emotion-driven limbic systems to budget, they've shifted monetary calculations to visual spatial cortexes, the same area chess grandmasters use to dominate opponents. This neural mutiny comes at a cost. To achieve this financial brain transplant, you must first confront your mind's immune system, the psychological antibodies that attack wealth-building thoughts as foreign invaders. Your next move determines whether you'll remain host to a poverty mindset or become the architect of your own neurological coup. What if every financial temptation you've resisted was actually weakening your wealth potential? The aristocracy of money operates on a brutal truth. Delayed gratification isn't virtuous, it's neurological warfare. While society praises willpower, the ultra-wealthy embed compound growth algorithms into their children's brains before puberty. This isn't parenting. It's intergenerational wealth coding through controlled psychological trauma. At age 6, future heirs undergo compound interest immersion therapy. Their guardians don't give allowances. They force negotiations with interest-bearing family banks that charge compounding fees on borrowed toys. This creates neural scaffolding where money is perceived not as paper, but as a living organism requiring constant cultivation. The pain of losing 5% weekly interest on a borrowed bicycle wires their brains to viscerally understand exponential math, decades before peers grasp basic budgeting. The middle class views the wealthy see them as time bombs, vehicles for making future decades work ruthlessly in their favor. But here's the synaptic hack. They don't visualize retirement at all. Instead, they practice temporal triangulation, projecting 3 parallel futures simultaneously. One where they spend now, one where they invest conventionally, and one where they deploy aggressive compounding. This cognitive split forces their brain to experience future regret in the present, transforming abstract numbers into visceral emotional triggers. Your brain's default mode sabotages long-term thinking through hyperbolic discounting, the tendency to prefer smaller immediate rewards over larger future gains. The elite counter this by creating artificial scarcity feedback loops. They lock away funds in untouchable trusts that charge 20% penalties for early withdrawal, tricking their present selves into fearing loss more than desiring instant gratification. This psychological judo extends to social engineering. While most families pass down heirlooms, Dynasties transmit debt covenants. Children sign binding agreements to repay luxury experiences with compounded interest, embedding the visceral reality that every privilege carries multiplying cost. The visceral memory of working 6 months to repay a compounded Disneyland trip becomes neurological bedrock for future financial decisions. But the true power lies in ancestral accountability systems. Wealth clans maintain family balance sheets stretching back generations, not as trophies but as psychological anchors. Seeing great-grandfather's net worth projections from 1929 creates temporal pressure to outperform predecessors. This isn't inspiration. It's neurochemical blackmail leveraging our innate fear of lineage failure. Their customized apps release dopamine hits not when they purchase luxuries, but when interest compounds beyond specific threshold. They've hacked their reward circuitry to become physically addicted to watching money grow. Your next challenge isn't resisting temptation. It's reprogramming your brain's entire pleasure-reward hierarchy. The technology exists, the frameworks are proven, but implementing them requires violating your mind's deepest comfort zone. Will you remain hostage to primitive impulses, or install new neurological protocols that force money to chase you? Every word you speak about money functions as either a wealth magnet or poverty propagandist. Linguistics researchers recently uncovered a pattern. 93% of self-made millionaires eliminated 3 specific phrases from their vocabulary. These aren't complex financial terms. They're everyday expressions like, "I can't afford it," that act as neurological cyanide. They know each financial phrase broadcasts vibrational frequencies that either summon capital or repel it through subconscious social signaling. Replace budget in with resource allocation strategy, and watch how peers subconsciously perceive you as someone guarding fortunes rather than scraping by. Your brain's Broca's area, the region governing speech production, directly influences prefrontal cortex activity during financial decisions. When you verbalize living paycheck to paycheck, you're not describing reality, you're programming future limitations through phonetic vibrations. High net worth individuals weaponize articulatory phonetics, deliberately choosing words with plosive consonants that trigger decisive action. They say funds deployment instead of spending, because the forceful GDE sounds physically prime the brain for assertive moves. Describing investments as risky activates amygdalar threat responses, while framing them as calculated expansions engages spatial reasoning centers. The wealthy don't avoid risk, they linguistically reframe it as territory conquest. This lexical shift transforms fear into strategic planning, using language as a neurological Trojan horse. Children of affluent families undergo covert communication drills. During dinner conversations, they're penalized for using passive financial language. Say, "We might invest," instead of "We allocate $10,000 quarterly," and dessert privileges vanish. This conditions their brains to associate vague money terms with immediate negative consequences, forging neural pathways that demand precision in financial speech. Your voice contains untapped fiscal power. Studies show enunciating wealth-related words with diaphragmatic force increases testosterone production by up to 18%, critical for negotiation confidence. They articulate monetary amounts with ballistic clarity, transforming about $20 into $23.50. To activate the brain's precision tracking parietal lobe. But the ultimate hack lies in temporal language eradication. Eliminate future tense financial phrases like, "I'll save eventually." Wealth builders speak in perpetual present tense. "I channel 30% into assets," creating neurological urgency. This linguistic trickery overrides the procrastination-inducing basal ganglia, forcing immediate action through grammatical warfare. Your vocabulary isn't describing your financial reality. It's manufacturing it through sonic alchemy. Each syllable about money either reinforces ancestral poverty spells or etches new wealth incantations into your neurochemistry. The question isn't whether you can afford to change your word. It's whether you can withstand the tectonic shifts in reality that occur when you do. Your family tree might be poisoning your bank account through invisible psychological vectors. The wealthy don't just inherit assets. They surgically remove poverty imprints from their lineage's psychological DNA. Every family carries ancestral financial ghosts. Perhaps a great-grandparent's bankruptcy during the Great Depression left epigenetic markers that make you subconsciously avoid calculated risks. The rich audit their bloodline's money, traumas through forensic genealogy, identifying which fears belong to ancestors versus their true self. This isn't therapy. Here's the molecular truth. Cortisol from chronic financial stress alters gene expression in ways passed to offspring. Your aversion to negotiating salaries might stem from a parent's layoff trauma, chemically etched into your glucocorticoid receptors. The elite break this chain through neuroepigenetic hacking, using targeted visualization to override inherited stress patterns. They don't meditate. They perform genetic memory edits by vividly reimagining ancestors' financial crises with empowered outcomes. "We've never been good with money" becomes a neural heirloom more binding than any trust fund. Wealth dynasties counteract this by deliberately seeding counter-narratives. Children hear embellished tales of ancestors turning 5,000 through cunning deals, even if historical records show otherwise. This fictional legacy becomes psychological capital, the lethal twist. Your brain confuses generational survival strategies with financial wisdom. Your grandmother's cash under the mattress mentality saved her from bank collapses, but now sabotages your investment potential. The wealthy employ temporal arbitrage, preserving ancestral wisdom while discarding obsolete tactics through rigorous reality testing. They honor forebears by achieving what their trauma prevented, transforming genetic curses into competitive advantages. Your cells contain dormant wealth codes blocked by methyl groups of inherited doubt. Demethylation begins with linguistic archaeology, analyzing family phrases about money for hidden limitations. Replace "we're not lucky" with investments with "our lineage is strategically patient" capital allocators. This molecularly alters how genes express financial behaviors within 6 months of consistent practice. Breakthrough studies reveal 14 consecutive days of rewriting family money narratives increases oxytocin receptors in decision-making brain regions. The rich don't have better instincts. They've genetically enhanced their neural hardware to bond with abundance. Start tonight. Document 3 generational money myths you've unconsciously believed, then craft antithetical statements. Recite them aloud twice daily until your physiology rejects poverty as foreign tissue. This is psychological chemotherapy for inherited financial sick. Side effects include alienation from relatives stuck in lack mentality, and sudden clarity, seeing hidden wealth opportunities. The treatment works, but only if you stop being custodian of ancestral limitations and become architect of genetic prosperity. Your DNA is listening. What financial legacy will you etch into its double helix? The culmination of these strategies reveals a disturbing truth. Wealth isn't accumulated. It's colonized through psychological insurgents. Your environment conspires against prosperity using biological, linguistic, and ancestral weapons you've never been trained to detect. While you battle surface-level habits, the wealthy deploy cognitive special forces to sabotage scarcity at its roots. Every financial decision you make today sends ripples through 4 generations. Neuroscience proves that disciplined financial behaviors for 6 consecutive months can override 78% of inherited poverty programming. The elite exploit this through mandatory wealth rituals, daily practices so simple they're often dismissed, yet so potent they reshape cerebral infrastructure. Begin with neural redirection. When faced with financial anxiety, immediately visualize vaults of gold coins in your prefrontal cortex. This isn't childish. It physically blocks cortisol's access to decision-making circuits. Groundbreaking research exposes environmental priming as wealth leverage. The scent of peppermint increases risk tolerance by 33% by stimulating the hippocampus novelty circuit. Strategic use of blue lighting during financial tasks reduces impulsive choices by activating the brain's logic centers. These aren't life hacks. They're neurological override codes stolen from behavioral labs. The final barrier isn't knowledge, but permission to implement it. Your brain resists these tactics because adopting elite strategies triggers an identity crisis. It means surrendering victimhood armor that once felt safe. The wealthy navigated this by creating parallel personas. They don't become financial geniuses. They allocate 2 hours daily to role-playing as their own ruthless financial advisor. This psychological decoupling allows executing wealth strategies without triggering ego defenses. Warning: these methods expose the fragility of current systems. Seeing behind the financial curtain may make conventional advice unbearable. You'll recognize bank incentives as neurological traps and government policies as mass cognitive inhibitors. This awareness carries responsibility. Once awakened, you can't plead ignorance to your financial patterns. Implantation begins with synaptic blackmail. For the next 9 days, replace one poverty-scripted behavior daily with its wealth counterpart. If you normally check bank balances with dread, do it while standing tall and hissing, "Mine," through clenched teeth. Seems absurd. The ritual reprograms primitive brain regions associating money with threat into perceiving it as conquered territory. Your financial destiny was never about markets or salaries. It's a neurological hostage situation. The captors, inherited fears, synaptic miswiring, and self-limiting language patterns. The ransom? Relentless application of these brain-based strategies until wealth becomes autonomic nervous system reflex. The elite guard these tactics because they reveal a devastating truth. Poverty is optional, not through luck or privilege, but through cerebral demolition of its very architecture. You've now been briefed on classified psychological operations against financial mediocrity. Silence maintains the status quo. Implementation makes you complicit in the revolution. Choose your treason wisely.